All right, let's get started. Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Morales. I am the chief of the Counter-Narcotics branch at the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs. It's a pleasure to be here with you for the very first sub-working group session of sub-working group 3.3, which is addressing populations in contact with the criminal justice system, including alternatives to incarceration. I have a few administrative announcements before we can get started today. Yesterday, we had our 4 sub-working group sessions for the 2 major sub-working groups of manufacturing and trafficking and detecting threats and emerging patterns. And today we are focused on our 3 sub-working groups for public health. This is the 3rd in that series. And we will replay or rebroadcast or redo these meetings next week on October 25th and 26th for the eastern regions of the world at an opposite time zone from where we are today. So about 12 hours into the future next week on the 25th and 26th. But you are all more than welcome to attend that session if it's at a convenient time and you wish as well. I would like to point out the email address to the bottom right hand of the screen, syntheticscoalition@state.gov. Should you have any questions, any concerns, any thoughts, ideas, please, we welcome you to email us at the State Department. We are serving as secretariat to help facilitate a lot of these meetings. I also want to share with you that the registration for the working groups and sub-working groups will remain open for the entire year of the coalition's work through September. So if you have other government colleagues interested in joining other ministries, other agencies, if you have other colleagues from international organizations who might be interested, we encourage you to share the links that you see there. If you would like them digitally, you can again email us at the email address below right, and we will get those to you. We are also preparing a new website for the coalition, and all of the presentations from all of the sub-working groups will be posted there. But importantly, we are only recording the presentations. We are stopping the recording at the comment period. So those presentations will be posted on the website in the coming weeks. And I also want to share that we are very fortunate to have coordinators from international organizations that are volunteering to work with the co-chairs and prepare meeting summaries. And so we will also be posting those summaries from today's meeting and future meetings on the website as well for all of you to see. And also in the next few weeks, we are going to be sending the meeting schedule for the entire year, so you know what days the meetings are taking place. And we also will send out the calendar invites for the next few months so that you have those exact times blocked off on your calendar. But it will be the same time that you are at right now for the future months. So I want to end now by just sharing the meeting schedule so you understand what the sort of state of play will be. Today's session, we are framing the issue. So we're looking at major challenges and issues related to the topic and what is the state of play? What does the field look like with regard to this issue? Second, we are going to be looking between November to February at sharing best practices and models, identifying points for intervention, and looking for what potential deliverables and commitments we might be able to identify and secure. We are looking to make this experience of the coalition very operational. We would like concrete outcomes and initiatives, either to come out of this, some new initiatives, or maybe looking at initiatives that are ongoing and then expanding those. And so we are very much looking for your input, feedback, ideas in terms of what we can concretely do operationally to address the issue of synthetic drugs as it relates to this sub-working group. In March, we will have a midterm check-in where we will have the sub-working group co-chairs reporting to the working group co-chairs what progress is being made within the sub-working group. And then between April to July, we will focus on action planning and implementation at a global level, at national levels. We'll be working collectively to support each other in this effort. In August, we will be then looking at evaluation and transition to ensure sustainability. We will be spinning off these initiatives into existing organizations or programs that are there globally or that will be initiated and created, because this coalition will come to an end in September, where we will have our final working group meeting. And then at that stage, we'll have again the sub-chairs reporting to the working group chairs, the final sort of reports on their sessions. And our anticipation, our belief is that we anticipate that for the next few years, we will continue the work of the coalition, but not as a coalition itself. Instead, individual lines of effort that will be initiated or expanded through this year-long program. So and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to start off by welcoming and thanking the International Organization co-chairs for session 3.3. We have Elisa Rubini from the Organization of American States, Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission, or CCAD for short. And then Anya Busif from UNODC, who just presented in our previous session. So I'll turn it over to them to introduce themselves and then the chairs. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brian, and welcome everybody to this working group. You brilliantly introduced myself already. So for the sake of the time, I would just turn to Anya, that was here in the group before, just to say hello as well before we move on with our program. Thank you. I see Anya is not responding right now, so maybe they have a problem.
Lisa, sorry,
Yes.
just to say hello, we had an issue with the sound. Many regards again from us at UNODC. We will be very happy to accompany also this group in the next weeks and months to come. And I'm Anya Russe from UNODC. Yes, over to you again.
Thank you so much, Anya. And now I have the pleasure to present our co-chair from the country. I will start introducing Giovanna Calderon from Costa Rica and having a brief bio note on her expertise in the field. Giovanna Calderon is a graduate in law from the University of Costa Rica, master in criminology from the National Distance University, expert in criminalistics from the University College of Cartago, with a diploma in project design and implementation from the International Center for Interdisciplinary Studies. She's an expert in project administration from the Technological Institute of Costa Rica and in governance, human rights, and culture of peace from the University of Toledo, Spain. She currently serves as head of the Office of Restorative Justice of the Judiciary of Costa Rica. She previously served as prosecutor of the Public Ministry of the Judiciary of Costa Rica. She took part in the drafting of the Restorative Justice Bill and Action Plan for the Restorative Juvenile Justice Public Policy. She also provided technical assistance internationally in restorative justice and has experience as a speaker and teacher. I know that Giovanna is connected with us. Unfortunately, her internet connection is very poor, so she will probably not be able to speak much, but I see she's on the line, so I want to turn her so she can greet you all. Giovanna, you have the floor.
Muy buenos días y buenas tardes, también dependiendo del lugar en el que ustedes se encuentren. Muchísimas gracias por esa presentación, Elisa. Efectivamente, el día de hoy no me encuentro con muy buena conexión por estar en un evento en el campo, pero por eso agradezco al juez Henderson de Trinidad y Tobago que va a asumir toda la facilitación del día de hoy. Y muchas gracias y estamos para seguir trabajando en conjunto.
Thank you so much, Giovanna, for being with us. I will just move on to present our other co-chair, Justice Geoffrey Anderson from Trinidad and Tobago. Justice Anderson is a former judge of the International Criminal Court and is a trial judge in the Criminal Division Judiciary of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. The Honorable Justice Geoffrey Henderson is a graduate of the University of the West Indies, where he obtained his Bachelor in Sociology with History and then a Bachelor of Law. He subsequently attended the U Wooding Law School, where he obtained his legal education certificate. After a short stint in-house at the local bank, in 1990, Justice Anderson joined the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, where he practiced extensively in the magistrate courts, the criminal assize, and Court of Appeal. Justice Anderson was associate tutor at Wooding Law School. In 2002, he was appointed the director of the public prosecutor in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, where he served until his appointment as judge of the High Court in January 2009. Justice Anderson sat in the International Criminal Court at The Hague in the Netherlands, and Justice Anderson is a fellow of the Commonwealth Judicial Education Institute and a former board member, the Judicial Education Institute of Trinidad and Tobago. Justice Anderson also provided local and regional training as a facilitator with the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Overseer Prosecutorial Development Assistant and Training Program in Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, Barbados, Jamaica, and the Bahamas. He chaired the Chief Justice Steering Committee for the pilot project of the Drug Treatment Court of Trinidad and Tobago. On November 2013, Justice Anderson was elected judge at the International Criminal Court, The Hague, where he took up two full-time duty in 2014 with a term until March 2021. It's a pleasure to welcome you, Justice Anderson, and I turn the floor to you to introduce yourself and continue with the moderation of this session. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone from different time zones. It is such a pleasure and an honor to be one of the co-chairs with you experts. I am truly excited that we are part of an exercise that can really make a difference to people. So I really do look forward to working with you as we try to identify concrete actions and outcomes that address this terrible scourge that we face in each of our respective countries. I'm very excited to be a part of this group of experts that deals particularly with addressing populations in contact with the criminal justice system, a passion which I have, and I'm sure I share with each of you, as we look to help people who have made bad choices, and we provide them with alternatives to incarceration. So I'm really excited. As I explained to Elisa, I do have a prior commitment arranged about a year ago, and I'm in a regional conference in the Caribbean away from home, and I'm actually presenting in 10 minutes on something else, so I have to leave. But that will be my only sin, I assure you. I will be with you each and every step of the way for each and every other meeting going forward. So thank you, everyone. I do wish everyone a good day and a productive one as we all work together to really make an impact on people who are looking forward to you, experts, as we make a difference to people. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Justice Henderson. And I will then move ahead and introduce our keynote speaker for today. We have the pleasure of having with us Professor Igor Kutsenov, which is a professor of psychiatry at the University of California, San Diego, director of the University of California, San Diego Center for Criminality and Addiction Research, Training and Application. He's a director of the International Addiction Technology Transfer Centers of Ukraine. He's also a vice president of the International Consortium of University on Drug Demand Reduction. He also served as a director of the International Addiction Technology Transfer Center in Southeast Asia. He completed his graduate degree as a medical doctor in 1983 from the National Medical University in Kiev, Ukraine. In 1986, he completed his psychiatrist residency training and received degree as a psychiatrist from the Medical University in Sofia, Bulgaria. Dr. Kutsunov has an extensive curriculum, and for the sake of the time, probably I'm gonna skip some of his excellent qualification, but Dr. Kutsunov has more than 25-year experience in the design and implementation of multiple trainings, including the motivational interviewing model and technical assistance program for mental health and addiction treatment practitioner, primary healthcare and social worker practitioner, criminal justice professionals in the United States and around the world. So without further ado, I turn the floor to the video recording that we have from Professor Kutsunov, and he's here with us to answer to possible questions that you might have. And I encourage all of you to put also the question in the chat. We have all the tools, we want to use them all so that it will help facilitating the discussion after the keynote presentation. Thank you so much. I turn the floor to the video recording.
Good morning, my friends. Good morning for me. It's probably evening in some other countries, but it's morning for me in California. Thank you very much for inviting me to share with you some thoughts that I'm about to share. I want to thank all of you who are involved in this global coalition and doing a lot of really exceptional work relevant to drug demand reduction, prevention, treatment, recovery, rehabilitation. And today I will be very happy to share with you some ideas relevant to the principles of treatment of substance use disorders in clients who are involved in criminal justice system, one way or another, with different severity, different types of systems, but they're in generally speaking, justice involved clients. I definitely appreciate, this is what I would like to say, to share with you from the very beginning. I do appreciate the differences between the countries, the economics, the traditions, the system set up, and many other differences. And definitely, I am far from telling you what to do and how to do it. You definitely need to decide, should you decide to do something in terms of treatment of people with substance use disorders and criminal justice context, you will definitely do it based on your local circumstances and local situation. Yet, I would like to share with you some fundamental principles that could be helpful in your decision-making across the board. And you may consider utilizing some of these principles, again, should you decide to do something relevant to treatment in criminal justice context. One of the things that I would like to start with from the very beginning, language makes a lot of difference, and language is an expression of our thinking. This is why I would prefer myself, and if I may, I would suggest you, to use the least stigmatizing questions. Our clients are stigmatized anyway. So I would rather avoid using the words like offenders, defenders, patients even. I prefer to talk about justice-involved clients. I found this terminology is the most neutral and the least stigmatizing. Here is what we know from the science. This is actually a global trend. The more severe is the substance use disorder, the greater is the severity, the more likely that this individual will end up under criminal justice supervision and sometimes even in prisons. There is a linear relationship right here, and we know it for many years. Forgive me. One of the things that we need to consider, again, is not the personal opinion, personal belief system, but the facts. And the facts are generated by the science. So let's take a look, what do we know from the science? There is no single study that would suggest a sustainable positive behavioral change as a result of criminal justice pressure alone. meaning punishment or threat of punishment actually is not what may give you some chances for a positive, sustainable behavioral change. In fact, we have a number of studies clearly suggesting that, particularly in some subgroups of people with substance use disorders, particularly people younger than 25, if the only thing that we do is a criminal justice punishment, meaning pressure, we are making them worse. They will be more likely to recidivate and more likely to relapse with drugs and alcohol. We also know that if we place people in prisons, or people with any kind of disorder, with any kind of dysfunction, with any kind of criminal life trajectory, all the prisons in the world, regardless how do they look, what is the setup, what is the physical layout, all the prisons in the world have incapacitating effect, which is in fact just the opposite to what we want to see in addiction treatment, in treatment of substance use disorder, empowering people, enforcing them, and making them practice new behaviors that are less problematic than the previous ones. Definitely with prisons, or with, in fact, any kind of criminal justice pressure, you will be, most likely, you will succeed in making people comply, meaning using criminal justice pressure alone, most likely you will be able to force people to do things they're not willing to do. So now we're talking about compliance. And unfortunately, compliance has nothing to do with a sustainable behavioral change and recovery. Compliance means you're suppressing a behavior that is less than desirable. A police officer will make you comply in most of the cases in literally 2 minutes. The problem with compliance, those of you, I presume some of the viewers, some of the participants are criminal justice professionals and practitioners, people who work in criminal justice system in various capacities. Most likely, almost for sure, you will make the person comply. But the problem with compliance is the compliance lasts only as long as you have control over the person, with very predictable return back to the previous problematic behavior as soon as your control fades. So you will be able to make people comply. Unfortunately, you will never be able to sustain it. One of the important things for those of you, particularly who are treatment practitioners, remember, we are not discussing only the individuals who are using substances because they have a substance use disorder. This, in my mind, should not be, the use itself should not be a matter of criminal prosecution to begin with at all. But this is my point of view. At the same time, we are reviewing the population, people who have at least two major sets of problems. On one hand, they have a substance use disorder with some severity, and on the other hand, they're involved in life criminal trajectory. So they have, definitely they have more than two sets of problems, but these are the two major. In fact, some of these people are heavily involved in criminal enterprise. This is important because let's ask ourselves, if we provide treatment, therapeutic, behavioral treatment services, and maybe not just behavioral, sometimes medication can help too, but if we provide any kind of services relevant to substance use disorders to a population of people who are involved in significant crime, what is the goal? Is the goal just to get them into recovery and support them to maintain the recovery? This is a wonderful goal. And this is the typical goal of any addiction treatment in the community all over the world. Considering the population we are discussing right now, the actual goal, one of the goals, is equally important, by the way, is to make sure that our clients, the individuals we are treating, as a result of our intervention, will be less likely to commit another crime. Otherwise, unfortunately, let me make it clear to you, we are at risk sometimes to create sober criminals who could be even more dangerous. So let's make sure we are clear about the goal. The goal of interventions in criminal justice context is not just to help people to initiate recovery and stay in recovery as long as possible. The equally important goal is to make sure that as a result of our work, therapeutic work, our clients will be less likely to commit another crime, meaning the public safety protection for all of us is an equally important goal as public health improvements, meaning treatment and recovery in our clients. In order to do that, one of the key important factors for all of us to appreciate, regardless of what your belief system, what your training, what your experience tells you, to appreciate a fact. And the fact is that substance use disorders are not a moral failure or lack of willpower or not being moral or not being religious, none of the things that we used to believe even 30, 40 years ago. Considering the level of science that we have right now, particularly generated in the last 20 years, it is really difficult to deny that substance use disorders are by far more complex problems than just lack of willpower or a bad habit. Substance use disorders are chronic and relapsing brain conditions with behavioral expression and with the tendency for chronicity. It means it takes a long time to recover, sometimes a lifetime. This is something that, again, I'm not trying to justify anything. I'm not trying to change your belief system. I'm trying to present you the facts. I'm trying to understand what is the nature of the problem I'm working with, because if I don't understand it, it is highly unlikely I will be effective. This is all, it goes back to the issue of effectiveness. Let's take a look at what we, let me make a step back, because I said effectiveness. How do we measure the effect? Because people may have all sorts of ideas what effect, what the good outcome may look like. Well, there are two indicators that I will be the most interested in reviewing and analyzing in order to say, yes, there is an effect, or no, there isn't. One is the rates of drug and alcohol relapses in our clients, and two is the rates of re-offending, meaning committing criminal recidivism, committing another crime of some type. Because these are the two goals that I have in mind when I discuss the issue of treatment in criminal justice context: public health protection and public safety protection, and they're both equally important. So criminal recidivism reduction and the rates of drug and alcohol relapse reduction. If you look at this line, this is what we have generally globally in terms of the policies and different approaches to individuals with substance use disorders who are involved one way or another in the criminal justice system. From the left to the right, this is actually the incrementally increasing intensity of intervention, from the least invasive, from the least intense diversion type of programs, when people are diverted from the criminal justice system into the therapeutic system with the expectation that treatment will take care of the problems, and in many instances it does, through probation, drug courts, intermediate sanctions, all the way to incarceration. This is the incremental increase in the complexity, intensity of interventions, depending on the needs and depending on the local circumstances in each country. Definitely from the cost perspective, the diversion programs are the cheapest. The incarceration and the imprisonment are the most expensive type of interventions because they're the most intense and the most invasive. At the same time, from the public safety perspective, it is just the opposite. While people are in prison, they're less likely to commit another crime on the streets. So the reason why I'm talking about it, when we consider interventions in a criminal justice context, let's be mindful, we are trying to serve the two masters, the public safety and the public budget. And it is really difficult to make both happy. This is a really enormously difficult task, yet it is possible to do. Now let's discuss, let's think together. since we are talking about people who have committed some form of illegal activity based on your local legislation and your local law, what will happen if we place them all to prison? We've done it. We've done it not just in the United States, we've done it globally. In some countries, we continue doing that, just relying that the prisons will take care of drug use or substance use disorder problems. If we rely on prisons only, we know quite well what will happen. And what will happen, the majority of people 3 years from now will commit another crime. Almost all of them will relapse with drugs and alcohol. So that doesn't look like a terribly effective strategy. Okay, what if we do just the opposite? What if we rely on treatment? Because we are talking about people who exhibit criteria, they meet the criteria for substance use disorder, which is one of the diagnosable conditions based on both the DSM-5 and the ICD, International Classification of Diseases in the world. So they have a diagnosable mental health condition. Since that's the case, well, let's think what will happen if we forget about criminal justice sanctions completely, if we forget about any kind of criminal justice involvement, and rely on treatment strategies only, treatment interventions. This sounds like a logical idea, but the problem is, in many of our clients, if we rely only on therapeutic interventions and forget about any kind of criminal justice pressure, unfortunately, most of the clients will never show up even for intake assessment. And let me share with you a big secret. It is really difficult to treat somebody who is not there. So quite simple concept. So that doesn't look like a very good idea. Let me summarize what I just said. If we if we rely on public health approach, treatment, recovery support only, forgetting about any kind of criminal justice involvement, unfortunately, we will get very high attrition rates. If we do the opposite thing, if we heavily rely or solely rely on criminal justice system, prisons, probation, drug courts, without any type of meaningful therapeutic interventions, just pressure or punishment or threat of punishment, unfortunately, we'll have very high recidivism rates. So that doesn't look like, it looks like neither of these systems is capable to produce the result that we are looking for. Criminal recidivism reduction, public safety protection, and the reduction in the rates of drug and alcohol relapses and problems, meaning public health protection. Neither of the system by itself alone is capable to give us the result that we are willing to see. Okay, what if we combine the two? What if we combine the best from the therapeutic world with the best from the criminal justice world and see what will happen next? We have done this. We have made many mistakes in the last, let's say, 40, 50 years. Any kind of treatment intervention in criminal justice context that you can think of actually has been implemented, and most of the interventions did not succeed. They have failed. They did not produce the outcome, and this is why I think it's important to make sure we have some understanding of the type of interventions that have been implemented. They have been evaluated, and they actually did not produce any result. Fear-based intervention, trying to shame, to blame individuals, you will be wasting your time. Isolated drug education, placing people in a classroom, telling them how bad it is to use amphetamines or heroin, and as if they don't know. Self-help programs alone. Self-help are 12 steps. Please pay attention. The key word here is alone. 12-step model is the model that millions of people got their recovery from. Considering the level of dysfunctions in many of our clients, in most cases, this 12-step model does not have enough intensity to address their issues. However, if we add the self-help 12-step component on top of other things that we are doing that are more intense, that will actually increase the effectiveness significantly. So the key word here is alone. Harsh confrontational approaches, like in traditional old-fashioned therapeutic communities, confronting people into their face, yelling and screaming, trying to introduce some behavioral change through different strategies, but one of them is the harsh confrontation. That doesn't seem like an effective approach either, based on what we know from the science now. So there are some of the strategies that have been implemented, they have been evaluated, and actually we have no evidence they can result in any positive outcomes. So what we can do, what works, and how to make it work. If you really want to make it work, we need to answer 4 questions. We need to decide whom to treat. Unfortunately, we cannot help everybody. We need to make a decision whom to refer to treatment. We need to decide what exactly we are treating, substance use or maybe a combination of many other things. Substance use is just one element of it. How do we do that? There are different treatment models available. Which one or combination of models we will use? And the 4th question, how well do we do that? Do we have any fidelity and quality in our treatment? In order to decide whom to treat, we need to measure 2 things. We need to measure the risks, meaning risk for reoffending or risk for continuous involvement in any level of criminal or illegal behaviors. And we also need to measure the needs. What are the needs? I'm skipping some of the slides because they may or may not be directly related to our conversation. But the risk, let me go back. Risks are this is a score, if you wish, of very measurable indicators from the past and from the present that will actually give you pretty good prediction what is likely to happen from the criminal justice perspective. What is likely to happen, how likely that this person will commit another crime, which could be an important decision for any country in the world if you decide to implement some of the strategies that we are discussing. We also need to decide what are the needs of the individuals. The needs are the life attributes that may or may not be directly linked to criminal behavior or illegal behavior. And definitely, and there's a number of needs like lack of housing, unemployment, mental health issue, financial illiteracy, emotional illiteracy, impulsivity. There are lots of different needs, and they're very unique and individual. And we need to measure the needs in every case in order to determine what type of intervention is necessary. Some of these needs are criminogenic, others are not. The most criminogenic needs, meaning the human needs that are directly related to the potential of repetitive criminality, are criminal affiliation, criminogenic thinking errors, and substance use disorders. When we discuss what is it that we are treating, substance use or something else, we really want to make sure that substance use in our population is not the only thing we are doing, because people we are working with, they have, I will skip some of these slides, forgive me. People we are working with, they have a variety of different challenges: medical, financial, mental health, vocational training, education, legal issues, HIV, hepatitis C risks, family dysfunctions, childcare issues. So even though we talk about the use of strategies in treatment of substance use disorders applied in criminal justice context to justice-involved population, let's be mindful. In fact, we are not treating just substance use. We are dealing with a huge range of different problems that individual problems that individuals may experience. And unless these processes and these problems are addressed through the therapeutic process, through the therapeutic interventions, it will be highly unlikely, even if we focus solely on their use of substances, and we don't pay attention to other issues, and there are many, that would be highly unlikely we will be successful with this individual. So when we talk about risk and we talk about needs, there are 2 variables, there are 4 possible combinations. And in fact, these are 4 subpopulations that you will be working with should you decide to implement those strategies in different countries. And they respond differently to different treatments. Some of them should not be in treatment to begin with, and let me walk you through very briefly. This group, high risk for criminal recidivism and high needs for treatment, usually these are people, when you do the assessment, you will find that delinquency, the early delinquency, precedes the onset of substance use. So there are some indications of illegal activities before they started using drugs and alcohol. And then people start using drugs and alcohol. Typically, it doesn't help. So now, by the time they get into the criminal justice system, they will score really high on the severity of substance use disorder, and most likely they will score really high on the risk for reoffending or continuing being involved in criminal justice, in criminality, criminal behavior. You will be surprised that this is the population that actually responds quite well to treatment. If we combine high intensity treatment, different models, and I will tell you what the models are, with some initial criminal justice intervention, at least to get their attention as the initial push to initiate the therapeutic process. And the ratio between the two, at least initially, is probably 50-50. 50% treatment interventions with some initial criminal justice pressure to get their attention and to work on their motivation from external to internal. The low risk and high needs individuals right here, these are people whose criminality is secondary to their severe substance use disorder. In other words, most likely they would have never committed any crime had they not been so severely ill with substance use disorder. Do they need the criminal justice pressure? Yes, initially they do. But what they really need is a significant, intense, and typically long-term treatment intervention. And the ratio between treatment and criminal justice push now will be quite different. They don't need a heavy hammer. They need a lot of treatment. But they do need some initial criminal justice pressure, at least for the motivation change reason. High risk and low need individuals, they're right here. Folks, unfortunately, these are people who usually do not respond well to the typical treatment interventions, and they commit a lot of crime. But the good news, this is a very small population, even in prison settings. It's a 4 to 5%, even in custody settings. So it's a small population, a small group of people. They cause a lot of trouble, and they do not respond well to treatment. In the previous classifications, DSM or ICD, we used to call them psychopaths. We don't use this terminology anymore because it's very stigmatizing, but I guess you got the picture. So these are people who should be, because of they present significant problem from the public safety standpoint. They should be under the criminal justice supervision as long as possible and as close as possible. But this is a very small population, very few people that I really would not spend much attention other than just making sure that they're supervised by the criminal justice colleagues. And this subgroup, low risk and low need, these are people who actually, for whom we don't have any evidence of severe criminogenic needs, nor we have any significant evidence for severe substance use disorder. These are typically people who, forgive me, they got drunk and did something stupid. Now they don't have time for a good lawyer, and they end up in a prison or on probation or in drug courts. But these are people who, in fact, most likely they will be fine with minimum interventions or even no intervention. So referring them for high intensity treatment will be counterproductive because we will be wasting resources. These are people who tend to be well anyway, with minimum motivational interviewing conversation, very brief cognitive behavioral interventions, and good prevention to make sure that this behavior will never happen again. That most likely will be sufficient. So the two populations that I would be very interested in referring to treatment inside the criminal justice context are these two. And I would probably be very careful. Most likely, I would not refer these two populations into treatment, the typical treatment we are talking about, for different reasons. I would probably screen them out. In terms of what does work and the type of interventions that have been found effective in this population, in this criminal justice context, brief interventions, motivation enhancement therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, some contingency management strategies, particularly in conjunction with cognitive behavioral therapy, 12-step as an adjunct to more intense treatment, vocational educational interventions have been found effective, family restructuring interventions, and let's not forget about the medication-assisted strategies. We do not have medication for every type of substance use disorder. We have medications right now only for alcohol use disorder, opioid use disorder, and nicotine use disorder. We don't have medication for anything else. Also, let's be mindful, medication alone is not going to take care of the problem. Exactly like in patients with diabetes. Even if you have a patient with diabetes who responds beautifully to medication, but the patient is 250 kilograms, doesn't keep a diet, does not exercise, keeps smoking, and keeps eating all sorts of sweets and cookies every day, medication is not going to help much. This patient is going to die anyway. So the medication in our case, in case of substance use disorder, because of the complexity of the disorder, the medication could be helpful in many instances. It is really a good addition to treatment of some types of patients. But let's be mindful, medication alone is not going to solve the problem, but could be very effective and very important component of treatment. Okay, and the last thing I want to tell you, that if you decide, should you decide to implement any kind of science-based, evidence-based interventions in criminal justice context, let's make sure, please, don't overlook the issue of quality assurance, making sure that treatment you're implementing, the interventions you're implementing, are done with fidelity and good quality. Not to control you, just the opposite. To make sure that you have periodic information. What are you doing well? What is missing? What needs some improvement? And then you can react quickly to that. So let's make sure we utilize the interventions the way they have been intended, with good fidelity and good quality. And with that, I really want to thank you for your attention. I hope what I said makes sense to you, and what I shared with you could be of some use to you should you decide to utilize those strategies. And I'm definitely will make myself available if you have any questions to me through email, through the INL. And once again, I want to thank you for the opportunity you gave to me to share with you some thoughts. And good luck to all of you. And thank you again for your hard work. All the best.